If you want to get better with your money and stop struggling financially, then you need to do these 9 steps as soon as you get paid. These were the exact steps I took as soon as I started working, and a big reason why I became the first multi-millionaire in my family. For those new to the channel, hi, I'm John, a personal finance geek that's been obsessed with all things related to money since I was a kid. And in this video, I'll share my paycheck routine so you can apply them too and hopefully achieve even better results. The first step is to find your financial baseline by separating your wants and needs. You might be surprised by this, but this is actually the hardest step for most people because our brains are hardwired to avoid things that make us uncomfortable. That's why we avoid checking how much we have left in our checking account after a big shopping spree. But putting our heads in the sand is just going to make things worse long term. It's one of the reasons why, according to a NerdWallet survey, that more than 50% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. The good news is that it's super easy to find your financial baseline. Just grab a pen and a piece of paper and split into 2 columns, one for wants and one for needs. Now get your recent bank and credit card statements and place each expense item under one of those 2 categories. Want should include stuff like your Netflix subscription, Starbucks lattes, and movie tickets. The rule is if you can survive without them, then it's want, not a need. So yes, that avocado toast and spa treatment, while nice, are not needs. Needs should be things like your mortgage or rent, car payment, cell phone service, insurance, utility bills, and food from the supermarket. Total up the amount in your needs column. This amount is your financial floor, the bare minimum you need to get by each month. Ideally, aim to keep it under 50% of your total income. Now, don't treat this amount as something you can't change, as there are things that you can do to lower the cost. For example, houses and apartments can be super expensive, especially in major cities. Would it be cheaper to live outside of the city and commute to work? If so, it's worth considering. If you're fortunate enough to own a home, you can even do what I did and rent out the spare bedrooms for extra cash. I did this throughout my 20s and early 30s before getting married and made close to $100,000 for doing so. If you don't have spare bedrooms to rent, consider renting out empty areas in your home. There are many people who live near you who will pay to rent out storage places like your garage, closet, attic, and basement through platforms like Neighbor. And look, maybe you don't want to cut back anymore or rent things out, and that's completely fine. But it's worth seeing if there are some areas you can save money without impacting the quality of your life too much. If you can't reduce your expenses, you're gonna have to increase your income, which can come from getting promotion or starting a side hustle. Your earning potential is always higher than your saving potential. I know making your needs cost less than 50% of your paycheck might sound a little impossible right now and how it may come across from an older millennial. But I really do understand what it's like to earn very little. I didn't grow up wealthy. My first job was bagging groceries at a local supermarket for a minimum wage. It took a significant amount of time to level up my income to hit a financial baseline of 50% of my salary. But trust me, if I can do it, so can you, especially with all the side hustle opportunities that's available today. Step 2 is to build your emergency fund. Emergency fund is money you shouldn't touch unless something unexpected happens, like a major car repair, an oven replacement, or a sudden medical procedure. According to a 2024 bank rate study, 59% of Americans don't have enough savings to cover an unexpected $1,000 emergency expense. Life isn't smooth sailing, and at some point, an emergency will come your way, like when my wife cut her finger down to almost the bone while pruning a tomato plant. It was a nasty cut late at night, right before our flight to Bahamas. The 24/7 clinic we went to ended up charging a total of $1,200 to disinfect and seal up her finger. That took a chunk out of our emergency fund, but it was that emergency fund that protected us when we needed it most and prevented us from taking a loan with crazy interest rates. I recommend having an emergency fund that will cover at least 6 months worth of your financial floor. So, if your financial floor is $3,000 per month, you need to have at least $18,000 in your emergency fund. The best place to put your emergency fund is a separate bank account so you're not tempted to spend it. But don't put it in a typical savings account. Instead, open a high-yield savings account. My HISA is at UFB Direct, which is paying me a 4.1% interest rate. Compare that to the national average rate of 0.41%, my UFB account is giving me 9 times more. I know some of you are already thinking, I know a CD that pays 5%. Don't get me wrong, that's a great rate, but a CD requires you to lock up your rate for a period of time, and the whole purpose of an emergency fund is to act as a safety net that you can withdraw from in an emergency. It's not there to make you money, so having it locked away for some time totally defeats the purpose of having one. If you need to draw from your emergency fund at any time, your first priority as soon as you get back on your feet should be to replenish it. Treat your emergency fund right and it will return the favor. Once your emergency fund is set, the next step is contributing enough to your employer-sponsored retirement plan to get any matching funds that your employer offers. The reason you should do this before paying off high interest debt is that your employer matching funds are risk-free, guaranteed returns on your investments, usually at a higher rate than your debts. This is the closest thing to free money as you can get. According to Vanguard, almost half of employees with a 401k plan don't contribute enough to get their full employer's match, which is basically like your boss offering you a raise and you're like, nah, I'm good. For example, if your employer offers 50% on your first 6% of your contributions to your 401k plan, you want to make sure you contribute 6% of your salary to take full advantage of the match. So let's say you're making $60K a year. If you contribute 6% of your salary, which is $3,600, then your employer is going to throw in an extra $1,800. That's an instant 50% return on your investment. And thanks to the power of compounding, if you use the $1,800 each year to invest in a total US stock market fund like VTI, assuming an annual average return of 10%, that will grow to $325,000. And that's just the free money your company is giving you. If your employer doesn't match, or if you don't have an employer-sponsored plan, then skip the next step, which is step 4. Step 4 in your paycheck routine is to pay down your high-interest debt, like credit cards. Credit cards generally have very high interest rates, so you should always prioritize paying them off before you even think about investing your money. The stock market returns about 10% on average, but what good is that if your credit card is charging you a 20% interest rate? Paying down that debt is a 20% return on your money. That's much better than you get invested in the market. And it's a guaranteed return, something that the market can't offer. In fact, if you don't have any debt that's charging you above a 10% interest rate, I think having a small emergency fund of 1 month's worth of expenses is temporarily acceptable if you can take care of that debt as soon as possible. For instance, if you have credit card debt across multiple cards, the most logical strategy to tackle this is the avalanche method, where debts are paid down in order of interest rate, starting with the card that carries the highest rate. This is the optimal way of paying down debt because you will pay less money overall compared to the snowball method. The snowball method, popularized by Dave Ramsey, is where debts are paid down in order of balance size, starting with the smallest amount. Paying off small balances first gives some people a psychological boost because it feels like you're making faster progress. The downside is that your larger loans may be at higher interest rates, costing more in the long run because they're left untouched for longer. You should also consider consolidating your debt into a single loan with a lower interest rate. SoFi offers personal loans that will do this. The exact rate offered to you depends on multiple factors, but you can check for free without having any impact to your credit score. The next step is to contribute to your HSA, which is the acronym for Health Savings Account. Now, you'll only have access to one if you have a high deductible health plan, but if you do, it's the ultimate retirement account, even though it isn't technically a retirement account. It's an account that was created as a way for people to set aside pre-tax income to cover healthcare costs. But with its triple tax advantage, an HSA ranks as the best option for your retirement savings. First, your contributions are tax deductible, so you immediately save money by avoiding federal income taxes and Social Security taxes. Second, your earnings grow tax-free. Your HSA is like a savings account that grows with interest, but after you put $1,000 or so, depending on your plan, you can invest the rest in stocks to supercharge your growth. Everything you make in your account is not subject to taxes until you take the money out. Third, similar to retirement accounts like a 401k or IRA, once you retire and decide to withdraw funds, you'll have to pay taxes on the withdrawn amount. However, unlike other retirement accounts, an HSA can be used for healthcare expenses during retirement too, and money used for that is never taxed at all. Think of an HSA as a supercharged retirement account. Not only does it have the benefits of both a traditional IRA and Roth IRA, but it comes with a benefit that neither IRA offers, using it during retirement for medical purposes tax-free. The next step is contribute to an IRA. After contributing enough to your 401k plan to get the full match, it's generally better to add money to your IRA versus a 401k plan. IRAs generally have better investment options because you can open one with a brokerage of your choice. Low-cost providers like Fidelity and Vanguard offer low-expense ratio index funds. Currently, the annual contribution limit is $7,000 for those under 50 and $8,000 for those 50 and older. The next step is to invest in yourself because the easiest way to increase your income is to learn and attain more skills and knowledge. Like if you invest in your education to learn new skills to offer to your employer, that may get you a raise or that coveted promotion. One of the things I did some years ago was to learn how to create and grow a personal finance website. It was my little side hustle project at the time and it made a couple $100s. But I knew I wanted to invest back into my website design and development, and it's honestly been one of the best investments in my life because I was able to leave my corporate career and run my own digital media business. all thanks to the accumulation of my education, experience, and skills I learned along the way. Put your money into the right resources and it will pay back dividends. The next step is to start investing with a regular brokerage account. But I would take advice from friends and family on which companies to invest in with a grain of salt, because no one can actually predict what an individual stock in a company is going to do, and if you pick the wrong one, you could lose all your money. Hello, Enron. For 99% of people, it's much better just to keep it simple and invest in low-cost index funds and hold it long-term. A solid option is Vanguard's index fund VTI. This fund essentially covers the entire US stock market. With this single fund, you're invested in 3,615 companies, large ones, medium ones, small ones. It's got you covered. It also charges an expense ratio of 0.03%. That means for every $1,000 you invest in, it's only charging you 30 cents a year. That is crazy low. The US stock market returns about 10% a year, meaning your money will basically double every 10 years without you needing to do anything else. So if you invest $6,000 a year from age 26 to 66 with an average annual return of 10%, you'd end up with over $2.7 million. Do nothing with the $6,000 a year and you'd end up with just $240,000. That's a big difference that will really impact your life. Now, this doesn't mean you can't invest in individual stocks or riskier assets like crypto. I don't have anything against that, but you should only dedicate a very tiny portion of your portfolio to them, like 5% to 10%. A lot of people ask me what brokerage I like. I started with Fidelity as my main brokerage and love that platform. But for someone young starting out, I really like Moomoo. They have a great app and offer commission-free trading in US stocks, ETFs, and options for US residents. I know I'm wearing their t-shirt, but I'm not sponsored by them. I just love the app. So if you're interested in Moomoo, sign up with my link below, and once you make a qualified deposit, you can get up to 15 free stocks in a limited time 8.1% APY on your uninvested cash for the first 3 months. You can use the link below or just scan the QR code. After you accomplish all of that, the final step in your paycheck routine is to save for other goals. Common examples include saving for a down payment for a home or a car, your kid's college fund if you have one or plan to have one in the future, or putting money aside for a vacation. The thing is, by the time you get to this point, you're already ahead of 95% of people and have a lot of flexibility in what you want to prioritize next. I achieved financial independence in my 30s by doing these 9 steps. What step are you on? Let me know in the comments.